Did it ever happen to you? You did something and said, you're such a tzaddik. You're so righteous. You're amazing. Never happened? No, never happened, I'm sure. As a mother says to her child, tzaddikal you are. You know, you're such a tzaddik, such a righteous one, right? How many times do we look at someone and we see them and we say, that person's a real righteous person? Well, probably not that often, but what does it mean to be righteous? What is it? It's rhetorical right now, David.
I'm just going to mention, I live across the street from the yeshiva, so I see a lot of great people.
Yeah, he lives across from the yeshiva. He sees a lot of righteous people. And is that true? Is that in fact true? So we banty words. We use them in a way that, maybe it makes us feel good, but not necessarily are we using the words appropriately. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Tzaddikim Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. And the last several days we've been sharing with people here in the Gazen Library. We've been sharing together with people here, learning together. So we're live with many in the room over here, sharing together. We have been learning in the previous chapter that life's a battle. That God never promised us a rose garden. But what he did promise that if you're really living life, it will be a battle between the godly soul and the animal soul. The truth is, the animal soul is our first responder. It's the first thing that we are attracted in anything in life, is how it affects me. What is it? How is it good for me? What do I benefit from it? It's all about me. And then if we are refined enough and we're engaged enough because we've learned Tanya enough, we will then have also the godly soul. It will present its point of view, and it will engage a battle. So now we're going into chapter 10, and we're speaking about the tzaddik, the righteous one. What does that mean? So when a person has battled and battled, because everybody has to battle, or can choose to battle. It's a choice to battle. Non-choice means, right? Non-choice means you didn't battle. It means you're just following your instinct. What's your instinct? First responder, animal soul. But the person who has battled, who wages a war with the animal soul to the extent that they banish it, they eradicate the evil from the left ventricle of the heart. As the verse says in Devarim and Deuteronomy, you shall eradicate the evil from within your midst. Right? There's a literal sense of, amongst the evil around you, but then there's the figurative sense, meaning inside of you.
You're not putting it up on a board, or
no?
We're doing Tanya, and we're doing Tanya chapter 10.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
So someone who achieves this goal to eradicate it, but eradicates it, but didn't transform it completely into good. Right? Follow that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That person is what we call a tzaddik she'eino gomer, an incomplete tzaddik. It means there's still some evil that is lingering in the left ventricle of the heart. On what level? Not consciously. Okay, just ask him to right, because it's being picked up. Okay? Whatever is said here is picked up. Right? It means there's still something lingering subconsciously in the heart of the individual. It doesn't find expression in thought, speech, and action. Right? But it was not, there's a minute that has not been completely subjugated and nullified to good. In other words, ultimately evil has to be transformed. Because if it's not transformed, that means there's still some vestige of it. Ultimately. So this person who has worked and battled, really worked and battled very strongly, right? But it didn't depart, it didn't transform, convert to good completely. There's still some vestige. So let's explain. What does that mean exactly? How do we understand that? Why is that so? Well, now we have another term, tzaddik, a completely righteous person. A completely righteous person is someone who's converted all of the evil to good. And therefore this is a righteous person that knows no evil and only knows good. Completely removing any vestige. Now, when we say removing any vestige, focus carefully, folks, on the point. Let's not look inside. Let's hear the class. Okay? Then we'll understand when we look inside. Not only the garments of self-expression, thought, speech, and action have been transformed to good, right? To only holiness, but even the subconscious layer of the heart, where subconsciously there might be some negative feelings, that too has been transformed, right? Meaning that anything that would be gratifying to the person on a human level, right, whether consciously or subconsciously, food and so on, will be only a pleasure that is dedicated to serving God. Not only in action is it being done, but even in the depths of the heart, the pleasure that the heart has is only towards God. Right? Which is, whoa. You know, now you can't just call someone a little tzaddik or a big tzaddik, you know, because you did such a good thing. No. That's a misuse of the word. Right? Because here we're talking about someone even on the complete tzaddik, that is. Complete tzaddik. Every vestige of pleasure that the heart would have has been right, would be self-gratifying, is now transformed to only good, meaning that is a pleasure only that's directed towards God. That's a complete righteous person. Now, let's understand that further. Why? So, the way that tzaddik comes to this is despising any pleasure that's self-directed. If it's a pleasure for me, the complete tzaddik despises it utterly. Not partially, utterly. Right? Now, he's not going to show it on his face, because then that wouldn't be righteous. Not going to make a face to someone else who's enjoying their food. Not going to do that. Talking about for himself. For himself. He understands who we are, right? We're not the tzaddik, right? Talking for the tzaddik for himself. Completely anything that has a spiritual sustenance, right? Hey, what'd you do there, David? David?
Yes.
What are you doing?
I'm listening.
What for? The opposite of what I just said.
I'm listening. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Because anything that gets vitality from klipa, even klipas naiga, right? The complete tzaddik hates it totally. Because the only one thing that he loves is godliness, holiness. Anything that's the antithesis, hates completely. And here you have the true hate-love relationship, the way it's meant to be. The more you love God and only delight in Him, the more you will hate that which is the opposite of godliness. Klipa, siter acher.
Rabbi, what's klipa sniper?
Huh?
Klipa sniper.
It's a mixture of goods, right? The bagel that David just had was being animated by klipas noiga.
Yeah, it wasn't so good.
But he was looking for self-directed pleasure, so it wasn't so pleasurable, right? I thought he got rid of it because of what I said. He got rid of it because it was so pleasurable. Yeah. Right? So it's klipas noiga. It's not, if it was bacon, then it would be shalish klipas is completely something that is completely covering over godliness, right? They cannot be uplifted. It cannot ascend. But klipas noiga is something that is permissible, that has some goodness there, some holiness in there. Therefore, when you make a blessing and you do it with the mindfulness to serve Hashem, right? But here we're going a step further. We're going a step further. That tzaddik has complete despising anything that's not being animated directly from Hashem, His holiness. Even if it's klipas noiga, because klipas noiga is only a means that could be used for holiness, but in and of itself it's not, right? As opposed to, something that's completely forbidden speech, forbidden actions, right? That is completely three unclean klipas, unclean klipas, so that he hates even more. Why does he hate it so much? It's not PC to hate. It's wrong. It is PC to hate. In Tanya. Because the more you love your child, the more you hate anything that would be harmful to your child. The more you love your child, the more you hate the fact that they have a knife that they could hurt themselves. You hate that. And you're driven by that to remove the knife from that 2-year-old that could hurt themselves. Right? Strong words, but when you think about it, it's true. So I just gave that as a metaphor. The more you love Hashem, the more you will hate something that is the opposite of Hashem. What's the opposite of Hashem? Siter acher, the other side. Negativity. Klipa, that's the other side. You'll hate that. So the complete righteous has transformed any form of personal pleasure, personal delight, transformed it to only godly pleasure and godly delight.
Can you give an example?
So a tzaddik, it would despise the idea of sitting and eating something to have personal pleasure from it. We do it, right? Because we're not righteous. But the righteous wouldn't do it. And they would, they would only that there's a pleasure, a godly pleasure in it, a godly delight in it, right? We can be mindful of it, but doesn't mean we won't have the pleasure of the food, right? But we're not going to be motivated by the pleasure of the food. That we could do. That could be a Beinoni, or even a Beinoni in training. We'll get more into that when we go along. But right now, the righteous means the idea that I'm eating for personal pleasure and delight Forget about the mindfulness. We can be mindful that we don't do it for that reason, even though we might have a pleasure from it, right? It's not capable of them to have the pleasure in it. That's how much they love God and how much they hate the opposite of what is godly. That's why, well, we'll get more into it in the coming classes, of when we speak about a righteous person, it only exists in a Jewish milieu of Torah and mitzvahs. It cannot exist in any other manner. It's not possible. Because it's human to have pleasure. Now, maybe you don't seek the pleasure, but you'll have the pleasure. The tzaddik won't have the pleasure. Won't have the pleasure. The only pleasure they will have is in God. That's how much they've battled and worked on themselves to transform the complete righteous, to transform themselves. The incomplete will go further. There, right? We got a little notion of that on a subconscious level to be still, right? That is like, whoa. To have such a person in your life, the Rebbe, whoa. It's a different person. It's transformation of the complete righteous individual. It's a complete metamorphosis. By the way, that's just parenthetically, that's just being righteous. Being a Rebbe is even infinitely more removed than the righteous. We are so far removed from being righteous, complete righteous person, because we're talking about the feelings that's natural in your heart, right? Just, as we will learn, we're drawn by having a good, something nice to eat, right, and enjoyable. We're drawn by that, right? But we don't have to act upon it, right? We don't have to act on it. That's not a righteous person. A righteous person doesn't even have they're not drawn by it. That's why you don't know anybody like that, except for the Rebbe.
Are there other people?
There are, but you can't see that in a person. You don't know what's in their heart. You can see their actions. You can see when a person eats that, they are like, they become the food, right? Rather than they're mastering it, they are it, right? You can see, but can you see that someone has no desire for the food? That have no pleasure in the food, but only a pleasure in God? You can't see that because you don't know what's in their heart. But this is what Alter Rebbe is teaching us. There are such people. The way you'll know that they're righteous from other ways, because of, whatever.
Recommended. Referral.
Yeah, maybe. All right, let's see if we got any questions over here. Powerful stuff. Brett, does the animal soul have a role in self-defense or defense of a loved one when under attack? Well, for sure it will. The righteous will be very different, their self-defense. The righteous, very different kind of self-defense. Because their animal soul will not be what's provoking them to have self-defense, right? It'll be the godly soul, because they've transformed it. It'll be in a godly nature, very, very different to the expression of it. For us, it'll be, our animal soul, because, that's the bottom line, self-preservation will kick in, right? So does it have a role? Let's be honest, it will have a role, because we're not righteous. We're talking about the righteous here. Then, for them, it's been transformed. So even self-preservation, they're not going to get nervous. They're not going to get anxious. We get anxious. Why? Because our animal soul, self-preservation, can be in a moment feeling, I'm anxious because of the situation. Imagine, bombs coming down from, Hamas in Israel. You're going to get anxious, naturally, right? Or other things that create anxiety in us. That's coming from the animal soul that wants its preservation, and it's anxious about it. The complete righteous will not be anxious for a moment. It's hard to imagine that because we're very distant from it. That's why. How do you get to that level? Rebecca asks. Good question, Rebecca. We're not going to get there. Then the question is, why are we learning this? Because you need to have a righteous person in your life. I'm not going to get there, as we will learn. Well, we're going to learn more about this. We're not going to get there. But why are we learning this? Because you need to have a righteous person in your life. Yeah. Who's your Rebbe? That's what the Rebbe is. That's what a Rebbe is. A Rebbe is much more than a righteous person. But not for now. Does a complete study enjoy food and drink on Shabbos? John's asking a good question. On Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to enjoy your food. So does a righteous enjoy their food on Shabbos? For the sake of the mitzvah, they enjoy it. For the sake of the mitzvah, they enjoy it. Right? Not for the sake of personal pleasure. Others, let's be frank. I have, do I enjoy the food on Shabbos because it's Shabbos? Maybe somewhat. I also enjoy it because my palate enjoys it. Right? So, yeah, absolutely. They'll be, they'll have the pleasure, but the pleasure will be for the sake of the mitzvah, because it's a mitzvah to enjoy your food on Shabbos, to have the best foods. So you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah, not for the sake of your palate. On that level, and even for us, we can be mindful of that. But there's a difference between mindful and what we are actually experiencing. Very big difference, right? Okay. Yeah, we're going to get into the practice later. We're going to learn about that.
Thank you.
Davida, I don't see your, usually you have too big. I don't see your question. Oh, there it is. When we despise a sin in someone else, is that because it reflects on the sin of yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely, Davida.
Simple answer.
Right. When you despise someone else's sin, is because you've got that sin in you. And that's why you're able to see it. Yeah. So what does a tzaddik see in us? You know what they see? What we could be. That's what they see in us. What we could be. That's what they see. All right. Amazing.
John and I have questions.
Yes. And they've been answered.
John, powerful answer. Thank you.
So as John, like you say, the power of knowing such tzaddikim cannot be overstated. Is very true. 100%. 100%. So even though the Rebbe, it's after Gimel Tammuz, and the Rebbe is not physically with us, but the Rebbe is very much with us. Very much we're connected. What's the proof? The Alter Rebbe passed away over 200 years ago. And we're still his students. There's more students of the Alter Rebbe today than there were in his lifetime.
100%.
So his influence is very much so. So, and the Rebbe's influence is very much so. And, You need to create stronger connection to that, so we have
Shulchan,
a Rebbe.
Shulchan also?
We're not tzaddikim. We're talking about tzaddikim now. Talking about tzaddikim. We're not talking about, right?
Okay.
Although I must tell you, folks, before Gimel Tammuz, Rebbe spoke about, and I'm trying to remember which Farbrengen it was. I don't remember, but that we're all righteous, and we can all be righteous. And the truth is, Mashiach's time, we will be like this, on this level,
Amen.
right? So we got to learn about it now. All right. Torah studies last night. We had a wonderful class. We're going to continue now with Rambam, the laws of theft, final 3 chapters. Tomorrow we'll do the laws of robbery. Hamas. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad and Kadeshim. Much Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. By the way, I'd like your comments about the fact that we're doing this in the library as opposed to my office. How is the sound? How is the sound? The background is different, as you see. And any thoughts on how what you prefer?
Sound better here.
Thank you for joining. Join us for Rambam now.